in this election cycle, and I'm joining the. Do we have I'm joining Mr. Keith Duncan. Mr. Duncan, good to have you on the hotline. In a moment, we'll join Mr. Keith Duncan. Mr. Duncan chaired, and I believe he still does chair, the Economic Program Oversight Committee. That oversight committee was put in place by Dr. Peter Phillips at the commencement of the extended fund facility that we had with the International Monetary Fund. Mr. Duncan, good to have you on the hotline, OJ.
Good morning. Thanks, Emily, for having me.
Yes. Welcome. Are you still the chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee?
No, the EPOCH was wound up. EPOCH was wound up in December of 2024.
Yes.
I am actually right now the chair of the Independent Fiscal Advisory Committee.
Remind me how that committee comes in.
Okay, so coming out of EPOCH represented civil society, the private sector was at the table, the unions were at the table, the small business, agriculture, and we all sat on EPOCH, and we all sat and reviewed the fiscal and the monetary policies, targets of the government of Jamaica and the Bank of Jamaica.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this civil society body needed to be replicated somehow inside of the Independent Fiscal Commission.
Mm-hmm.
So this so now we have private sector, unions at the table, private sector, unions, civil society at the table,
mm-hmm.
in the Independent Fiscal Advisory Committee that acts as an advisory body to the commission, the fiscal commissioner.
Mr. Courtney Williams.
That's correct.
So, have you yet advised the commissioner on what is going on, what is flying about in terms of 3.5 million threshold, 25 down to 15?
Well, our last meeting was actually last week before these announcements were made. But I have been in discussions with the fiscal commission, and I think that he would have done a press release to say that he has to wait until he sees it inside of the fiscal commission. Would have to wait till they see it inside of official numbers and the budget, etc., to be able to comment.
So that is until the party forms government. The fiscal commissioner doesn't believe he should comment.
Well, that's the law.
Oh,
that is the law. That the legislation around the fiscal commission.
But if the fiscal commissioner is supposed to be the guardian of the fiscal rules and the whole framework, I'm going to have to check back the law. I'll wait until I have a look at it to see. But you, as part of the Independent Fiscal Advisory Committee,
right?
I thought we'd call you because I'd love a thought from you coming from chairing EPOCH at a time when we were going through great economic instability, having now settled beautifully so macroeconomically and trying to balance all the things. What do you make of the two major proposals, one from the governing JLP to lessen the tax from 25 to 15%, and then from the PNP for the movement in the threshold to 3.5 million? Which of the two is even workable, and what is it going to cost if you've crunched those numbers?
Okay, let me just first say, I'm speaking here as former chair of EPOCH. We have not had the deliberations at the Fiscal Advisory Committee for me to speak publicly on the matter as chairman of the Fiscal Advisory Committee, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to speak here as former chair of EPOCH and as a private citizen of Jamaica.
Yes.
Okay?
Appreciate that.
And all right, and so let's get right into it. Now, I would say both programs are highly aspirational, right? But it comes right down to what can Jamaica afford? What can our taxpayers afford? Do we have the fiscal space to accommodate these aspirational plans of both the PNP and the JLP, right? And we would have to look at the composition of the budget, revenues, and the expenditures, right? To make a determination as to if we do have the fiscal space, do we have the money to be able to do so?
Right.
Right? I think we have been here once before in 2016, where
1.5.
moved to 1.5, and the opposition at the time thought that they would have identified sources of funding for the increase to the 1.5 million, the threshold. And as it turned out, there would have had to be offsetting taxation measures put in place to offset the increase. They called it revenue neutral at the time. Since then, there have been no new taxes, but it was called revenue neutral. So
how did they pay for the 1.5, you said?
They had the revenue measures. I believe they got rid of the oil hedge, and they put a tax on STT tax on gasoline, right? Among other measures. Remember, they had to put in offsetting taxation measures for the increase in the threshold for the revenue loss.
Yes.
In the increase in the threshold. Remember, and it had to be phased in.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it seems we're at that point again, right? Running up into a general election, a very important and consequential general election. Right? So therefore, for me, these are aspirational, these are nice to have, but do we have the money as a country to accommodate revenues that are going to be lost from these tax reform measures?
Let's take the 3.5 for a start.
Right.
I hear Julian Robinson talking of the first thing. They have this term called discretionary expenditure. I trust you've heard the use of that phrase.
Yes, ma'am.
And it seems to me that what is being called discretionary expenditure, there is this 360 billion, I believe, that is being talked about.
Yes.
And do you know how that is arrived at?
Well, if you look at the budget and how it is composed, right? So firstly, you have your wages and salaries.
Yes.
Right? You must pay your government workers, right?
Yes.
And right now at this point in time, there would be a lot of risk around this number here, the numbers that we have forecasted in the fiscal policy paper for wages and salaries, inclusive of employee contributions. So let's assume that these measures kick in 26-27, in the new budget year at 26-27, right? Because we're winding up 25-26. By the time the new government is formed, they will be crafting their budget around their reforms, right? So therefore, we have to account for compensation of employees, and that is we know the risk to this number. However, it is forecasted for 526 billion and 560 billion, right?
526 billion is a forecast for 26-27. So
right?
at the moment, I believe what has been approved for salaries for this fiscal year 25-26 is 495.8, and you are saying for the next fiscal year we're looking at 526, so that's a jump of nearly 30 billion for salaries only. Let me take a break. Talking with the former head of the Economic Program Oversight Committee, Keith Duncan, talking with him, getting his personal views on the proposals now. So you're telling us, Mr. Duncan, that for the next fiscal year 26-27, it is projected that salaries, based on the negotiations now, could go up to 526 billion
or more. So let me start from the top, Emily. Let me just start from let's look at the revenues and the expenditures.
Yes.
So total revenues, inflows of revenues forecasted in the fiscal policy paper for 26-27 is $1.1 trillion.
Yes.
Total expenditures are $1.137 trillion. That means we're running a fiscal deficit, our forecasted program to run a fiscal deficit already of $34 billion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're before any of these measures that are being proposed, we have a fiscal deficit that we're running, which is allowable under the fiscal rule, right? If we exceed this, then we could be possibly breaching the fiscal rule. So, right? Therefore, that is in terms of the reduction of running a fiscal balance according to that formula that we should run.
Yes.
That right. So we are allowed to run this fiscal deficit as a country.
Yes.
No. So therefore, let's break down the recurrent expenditures. Now,
Yes.
right. So the expenditures are made up of programs, which are 364 billion program for 26-27. Compensation of employees, 526 billion. Interest costs, 170 billion, and capital expenditure, $75.6 billion. That's how the expenditure. So these expenditures are already forecasted, right?
Yes.
So therefore, we're already running a deficit forecasted for 26-27. Now we have these two proposals on the table, right?
Right. So is the 364, which is what they're calling the discretionary expenses.
Yes, that's exactly the area that they're looking at.
What makes up the discretionary expenses as
So
they?
I would say the discretionary expenses, what I would call is the operation expenses of government and other major expenses, right? So in the fiscal policy paper, we see one cut of the programs, and it will be broken down in terms of the $364 billion will broken down as travel expenses and subsistence, 14 billion, rental of property and machinery, 12 billion, utilities and communication services, 20 billion, use of goods and services procured by the government of Jamaica, all the ministries, departments, and agencies. And these are expenses for all the ministries, departments, and agencies, right? 125 billion, that is all the goods and services that they procure as a government, right? Then you have grants, contributions, and subsidiaries. Included in these grants, contribution, and subsidies would be like your social programs, which is like 30 billion, your education, your operational expenses of your Ministry of Education, like 40 billion.
Yes.
Your subventions for UE, Tech, that's 17 billion. The justice system, courts and court administration, 12 billion. Transportation,
JUTC and so,
MBC,
Mobile
11
Metro.
billion. Health, drugs, operation expenses, etc. 19 billion. Local government sets 7 billion. Road maintenance would be about 4 billion. The solid waste management about 3 billion, right?
Yes.
So when you look at and so that's inside of the number what we call the grants, contributions, and subsidies, right?
Right.
Then you have your retirement benefits that are paid to your retired government of Jamaica employees. That's 47 billion, right?
Right.
Okay. Then you have your awards and social assistance. This would be like your social programs, etc. That would be another $28.8 billion, right? So inside of these numbers, this is what is termed discretionary.
But when you read out that list to me, which of those is cuttable?
Well, this is the difficulty that it would be very difficult. The degrees of freedom are very limited inside of discretionary spend, right? Now, where could you possibly cut?
Yes.
Would you cut because just to run the ministry, the expenses to run the ministry and to deliver services to the people of Jamaica?
Yeah.
That's the use of goods and services, because you're acquiring goods and services to run your ministry so you can deliver goods and services to the people.
Right.
Right. You rent property.
You have to pay rent.
That is your premises that the government of Jamaica would occupy. Maybe you could cut back on travel and expenses somewhat, a little bit, but in terms of the tremendous cost of the either proposal, either the increase to the threshold, which has an annual cost of Julian, the opposition spokesperson of finance, said 55 billion. But I think it's somewhere north of that number, because each 100,000 increase is about approximately 4.5 billion. So it's somewhere probably in the $70 billion range, right? And that's annually. Under the JLP proposal, in terms of if you were to do it as a one time, it would be $28 to $44 billion annually. Therefore, inside of the inside of you should really have very limited space to be able to afford any of those. Right?
Right. So where we're told for the PNP about the 140 billion that is forecast for the next 3 years, you are telling us that for the next fiscal year, based on revenue, when you match it up with expenses, we're already at a deficit, even with the forecast for the 140 billion over 3 years.
So let's look at the growth and growth in tax revenues.
Yes.
Right? Because tax revenues grow by what you call nominal GDP growth.
Yes.
Right? So therefore, if we're forecasted to grow at, say, 1% next year and inflation is forecasted at 5%, those increase in price of goods and services, you get that through tax revenues. So you get an inflationary component in your growth in tax and revenues. But you also have that on the expense side, because all that you're procuring as a government and wages and salaries, prices also go up.
Yeah.
So that is not like room that we have. That room is already accounted for in terms of increasing the cost of delivering programs, the cost of assuming that you're going to your government, your public sector will get inflationary increases or to keep pace, and even with your past benefits, because the past numbers are inside of these programs in the
so-called discretionary spending.
Right. And even that you have to keep pace with inflation so you don't erode purchasing power.
Right.
So therefore that 140 billion is not nearly room that's necessarily available.
How far is it compounded as well when we hear of the PNP's plan to not take the 11.4 billion from the NHT?
Well, that would be, and plus the other measures that both the PNP and JLP have proposed.
Yeah.
Right. That these are actually measures that are going to reduce revenues.
Yes.
Right, and those are like the NHT will be a non-tax revenue that will be reduced.
What about the plan to grow the economy for greater than 1%? When have we ever grown to? About what level of economic growth would we require yearly to even have money to support any of the programs as proposed?
So let's say I'm not sure exactly this phased approach. I know that the Jamaica Labour Party put forward a phased approach to the introduction of the 15% base rate on personal income tax. That it would be a phased approach, and I believe what I heard Julian saying in debate was that not everything we're going to have to do at one time. So I'm not sure exactly what their plan is, but we definitely know that for sure that the fiscal space is extremely limited, and it would be it would be extremely difficult unless you are to carve out any level of expenditure cuts significant to match up with the revenues lost under either proposal. So therefore, it has to be phased.
So
it would have to be phased, and it would have to be accommodated with either additional taxation measures that like was done in 2016, because you don't want to increase your deficit beyond the fiscal balance that you're allowed to run.
Yes.
Right, and therefore, if you run a deficit, then you're going to have to borrow to finance that deficit.
Wow.
Now, if you're going to introduce taxation measures, which both parties have said they aren't, right, then you're going to have to cut expenditures. And as the numbers demonstrate, you don't have the room to cut.
I have to leave it there. I do hope you will write about this, because this is too important for it not to be documented, Mr. Duncan. All the best to you. Thank you so much. Keith Duncan, speaking in his personal capacity. He was previous chair of the Economic Program Oversight Committee. Its headline stands. Jesus. I tell you, when the multitude come down on you, then it means surplus is coming. When the multitude is how many men and how many women and children were there with the five loaves and two fish. When the multitude come down surplus, because when they were done, Jesus was done feeding the multitude. There were 12 baskets left over, one for each of the disciples. So we don't watch when the multitude come down, because we get the presence of people with blessing, like Rondell Positive walking in the studio here today. Thank you so much, Mrs. Fuller. Thank you. Mr. Morgan, we'll come back to you, and I hope you heard what Keith Duncan said in the interview a moment ago. Keith Duncan messaged to say that the figure for national security is actually 40 billion. I believe he'd said 80, but it still doesn't impact the fiscal deficit, which we will be running for next fiscal year at 34 billion, and it doesn't impact all of the other details. None of these figures is hidden. Listeners, they are available in plain sight because they're in the fiscal rules, they're in the papers that have been tabled and put out by the government of Jamaica. So we can literally work to a high degree of mathematical precision some of what we're saying. And one of the important things that Keith Duncan reminded me a moment ago is that for the JLP to make their 1.5 measure a thing, they actually increased taxes through the special consumption tax on fuel and to remove the hedge. And I think Carrie on Twitter sent me an actual page signed by the then Finance Minister Audley Shaw, showing the summary of revenue measures for the 2016-2017 financial year to make that possible. So let that sink in. 876-926-2178. Hello.
Good morning, Emily.
How are you?
Not bad at all. 2 months ago, a Jamaican was among a group of men.
Who is this?
From America to
Who is this? Who am I talking to?
Winston from Nakpatrick. The same
yes.
Winston. Emily.
Right, Winston. Mm-hmm. Yes, right. To Eswatini.
Right. The report from America said that the men were so, but I think it was barbaric was the word they used.
That their countries didn't want to take them back.
Right. And our foreign ministry said that we did not refuse to take anybody.
Yes.
Well, we don't know where the truth lies, but after 2 months, the man is still not here. So I guess that can help us to judge where the truth is.
No.
Well,
no.
Right.
Have you heard any update on that story since?
No, man.
Have you been listening to try and hear any?
Yes, I did, but I don't.
But
what's the update on it if you hear any?
The funny thing is, only this week it was in the news that the Jamaican government is trying to get the man back to Jamaica earlier. The consulate in Africa or wherever, they have been in touch with him. He's in good spirit, and they're trying to get his early removal from Eswatini to Jamaica. What do you make of that now that I've told you that update?
That we are trying to get him here. No.
Yes, you said because America said they were so barbaric that their country of origin wouldn't take them back.
Right.
And our Minister of Foreign Affairs said we'd never been consulted. You were inclined to read into it that probably we were not telling the truth. But I'm saying only this week we were told that our Ministry of Foreign Affairs has made contact with him through the consulate. They visited him. They made contact with his family. He's in good spirit, and there are intentions to get him from Eswatini to Jamaica as soon as whatever administrative details are worked out. What does that say to you now?
Maybe the U.S. authorities were not speaking the truth then. If we were speaking the truth, it means that they were not speaking the truth, that we did not want, their country of origin did not want them back.
Don't know.
All right. The next thing is that there is another gentleman who I for a couple of years now I don't hear anything about him. He is Al-Faisal. He is a Jamaican. He was He's a Muslim, right? He was, I
Yes.
think, the head of,
Mohammed Al Faisal. Yes, I remember
yes,
him.
Sheikh Abdullah Al Faisal,
Yes,
right?
yes.
I don't know. Wherever in the world he is a Jamaican Emily, and for the longest while I have not heard anything about him. I don't know. I don't know what's the situation with him. What's the position? I don't know.
Was there an issue with him in the United States again? I don't remember.
Well,
I
well,
don't
to tell you
remember.
the truth, what I remember, I don't know if it was the United States, but I remember that it was some foreign countries. He probably, I don't know if it was Pakistan or Afghanistan or somewhere there.
Yeah.
That was the last thing I heard.
I don't remember, but why is it that he's crossing your mind?
Because of this other Jamaican who was sent off to Eswatini. I just remember about Al Faisal when I think about this one.
Well,
I don't know where Al Faisal is.
I don't know either. When you find out, tell me.
Well, I was calling you begging you to try and
No,
find
no,
out.
no, no,
You
no, no. It is of interest to you. You go and find out. The one with Eswatini has been an issue of concern because a Jamaican was sent to a third country to which he had not infringed their law. So it became an issue as to how do we treat Jamaicans who should be properly deported here as opposed to sent to a third party country. I've heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs recently and I gave you the update. As to Faisal, I know he was convicted elsewhere. I think he came back, but I do not know. But since it is your cerebral meanderings, find out and let me know. Because there's too much on my plate now to go and find out about Al Faisal.
Okay.
Thank you for the call. God bless you. 876-926-7615. Hello?
Hello, good afternoon, Miss Emily.
Hi. Who is this?
This is Deborah.
Deborah, good to have you.
Yes. My question is for you. I heard people talking about crime going down. Yes, crime going down. But crime is only going down for certain people. The poor people that the government leaves vulnerable to pick up guns, to go fed for themselves. The white-collar criminals are not going anywhere. And I was listening to the second debate. And when I heard that man, Mr. Claplin, or whatever his name is, talking about Jamaican people don't seem so interested in what's going on in the country, in the illicit with the government and stuff like that. He's wrong. And if it's that the way he views Jamaican people as ignorant, he's wrong.
He said Jamaica is not interested in
what is going on with the government, with the elite six R. It don't feel like it is resonating with the people, but he's wrong.
No, that's a different thing. It's not that the people are not concerned. The PNP has made it a campaign issue for nearly 2.5 years now.
Yes, they have to. Because this government don't feel that they respect the people of the country. When you look at the Royal Reed case.
The what?
When you look at the Royal Reed case.
Yes.
When you look at all these money.
What about the Royal Reed case?
Listen. Mm-hmm. Let me speak.
No, ma'am. What about the Royal Reed case?
It's not going anywhere.
What do you mean it's not going anywhere? It
went
to Miss Deborah.
There's no justice in Jamaica for poor people. There's no justice. Look at that man that died in the lawyer's man house. Why are these cases are on the backbench? Why are they not moving forward? Why taking so long?
What do you think Andrew Holness has to do with any of those? I think we have to go to the we have a break and then we have to go to Money Talk. Miss Deborah, I'd love to